it absolutely beggars belief. And if we want to clean up politics, then this sort of thing should not be being allowed to happen. Politics is a difficult place, we know that, but this was down to judgment. Yeah. It was down to the judgment of one person, or was it the judgment of others around that person? So I urge the honourable and right honourable members on the Labour benches opposite, do the right thing this evening. Stand up for democracy, stand up for Parliament, and stand up for decency.
Alicia Cairns.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. Liberation Day. That is how Mandelson described the day of Epstein's release for prison for procuring children to be trafficked and raped. Mandelson's next message was, "How is freedom feeling?" Epstein replied, "She feels fresh, firm and creamy." Mandelson's next reply, "Naughty boy." Now, we hadn't seen this email, I'll admit, when the ambassador was appointed. But let's look at what we did know when he was appointed ambassador. We knew at that point that he had consoled this paedophile, consoled him on his being found guilty and convicted for just one of the many, many crimes he had committed. We also knew that while he was Deputy Prime Minister of this country and Business and Trade Secretary, carrying the flag of our great nation on an official visit to New York, he stayed in a convicted paedophile's flat. How dare he do that while representing this country? But the idea that no one in the Cabinet Office, no one at the Department of Business and Trade, no civil servant, no political appointee knew that he'd said, "No, I don't need a hotel, thank you ever so much. I'm going to stay at my friend Epstein's house. Oh, by the way, he happens to currently be in prison, incarcerated, but I'm going to stay at his house anyway." That, to me, raises serious questions about why he was not pursued for misconduct in public office back at that point. And no one can say that the Labour government did not know, because having been a civil servant, I knew where my ministers were staying when they're abroad. Not sure they always wanted me to know, but I knew. And none of them would have ever done that. This is the heart of the issue with the judgment of the Prime Minister. Now, on Monday, one of its ministers, the government's ministers, said nobody objected when Mandelson was appointed. I would say, look at Hansard. I remember objecting very, very clearly and repeatedly, because it was very clear at that point that Mandelson had repeatedly said that Epstein did not deserve to be in prison, that this was an awful time for him, how he was caring and thinking for his good friend. Why was there no investigation, and why was the vetting not done right? Because there is no question that the vetting cannot have been conducted properly. I have been through vetting myself. Now, I accept it was not as a minister, but as a civil servant, I've been sat in a room with a rather elderly gentleman for 2 hours, asked about my every sexual proclivity, asked about when I lost my virginity, asked about whether I'd taken drugs or not, asked about every single aspect of my life. Because civil servants, whether they be apolitical or politicians in this place, should hold themselves accountable and be right to be appointed for these roles. It is quite clear from the debate today, and from the evidence given by the Right Honourable Member for Malden, that the Prime Minister wanted this done. And because the Prime Minister wanted Mandelson, Mandelson was going to be appointed. Now, we will see when the docs are released how they were able to get round the official vetting. But this draws my concerns to another political appointment that was rushed through because the Prime Minister demanded it, and that was Jonathan Powell, the National Security Advisor. This is another appointment where there are significant concerns about his business interests, significant concerns of this House that there has been no scrutiny of Jonathan Powell as National Security Advisor because he will not come before this House. He will not give evidence to this House. His relationships in China, his relationships around the world. And yet Jonathan Powell is permitted, again flying the flag of this nation, conduct secret visits to China where he meets with Wang Yi and other senior representatives, where the British government refuses to put out any press notice, explaining why the visit happened, or even the fact the visit happened at all.
Will she give way on that?
I will happily give way on that point.
My honourable friend, she's, as usual, giving a very good speech. And, Madam Deputy Speaker, I was a former Special Advisor at the Cabinet Office, a great department with great civil servants. But my honourable friend has mentioned the case of Jonathan Powell and Lord Mandelson when he was Deputy Prime Minister. Does she not agree with me that this kind of backhanded way of conducting government business without officials being present actually puts pressure on our great civil servants and puts them in a very difficult situation? It's not how government should be run.
Absolutely, I agree entirely with my very good friend. I was actually very taken back earlier by the comments of the chair of the Foreign Affairs Committee, who sought to give us a lecture in how vetting is undertaken by government, where she kept referring to fast-stream civil servants were the ones responsible for the vetting. Fast-stream is a mode of recruitment. It is not once you are made a civil servant. And it did feel like she was trying to suggest that there were junior civil servants who should be taking the can for the vetting process that was pursued. And I very much hope that is not the case, because it would be deeply inappropriate if it were. But the two commonalities between the appointment of Lord Mandelson and of Jonathan Powell are Morgan McSweeney. So I must ask whether or not Morgan McSweeney is the one who here should be held accountable. Because at this point, it looks like no one is going to be held accountable. I will very happily give way.
Today's debate is about accountability. Everything falls at the lap of the Prime Minister. Does she find it quite frankly incredible that the Prime Minister has sent, with all of the greatest respect, a junior minister to the dispatch box when he alone has serious questions to answer? And would it not show real leadership that he came to that dispatch box tonight to wind up this debate?
My right honourable friend is absolutely right, and he may also recall that following Prime Minister's questions today, I had no choice but to make a point of order, because the Prime Minister told this House that every humble address that their party had put forward in opposition had a national security protection clause. And yet, when I looked at the November 2024, the last two that they had done in opposition, neither features the word national or security, let alone the two put together. But the Prime Minister put his, in just a moment, but the Prime Minister in contrast put his hand up to me and dismissed me, shaking his arm at me as he left the chamber, as if the point I was making was not one that was necessary. And yes, on Monday, members will also recall, he shouted that I was pathetic for asking why he met with the master of the two Chinese spies when he went to China recently. If the honourable gentleman would still like to intervene, I'm very happy to take his intervention.
Thank you very much, Madam Deputy Speaker. I'll take the honourable member's word for it that those humble addresses didn't contain those words. But if you take, for example, the humble address on Lebedev's appointment to the House of Lords in 2022, it didn't have to contain those words for the Conservative government to use national security grounds to not provide swathes of documents, precisely, doing it without the words even being included, and actually using rhetoric in the response that they were almost mirroring the Freedom of Information Act in the types of exemptions that should be applied. Are you really going to deny that that was the approach to dealing with a humble address?
Two uses of the word used it.
Sit down.
I haven't said anything. It's the Honourable Lady who has made a comment, but any intervention needs to be via the chair.
Apologies, Madam Deputy Speaker. I'm out of practice on my interventions, obviously. Would the Honourable Lady like to respond to that, and is she aware of the convention?
The honourable gentleman, because I agree he should hold his government to exactly those standards. That is the point that I made precisely, and I'm very sorry that he missed my point of order. I recognise it was not a showstopper. However, that is exactly the point that I made. It is implicit within these, and if the government had tried to put wording in their amendments such as secret or top secret documents cannot be revealed, I would have said yes. That is absolutely fair, but that was the exact point. There is no requirement to stipulate national security, let alone some vague wording around international relationships, because it is already provided for. So I'm thankful to him for confirming exactly my position. Now, we've touched on China here. I do hope that when these documents are released, we will see also the full extent of the relationship between Epstein, not just with the Putin state, but also with the Chinese Communist Party, because I do have deep concerns about the way in which Mandelson had a say over the current government's China policy, because there is no question that he has been in there and influencing that. Now, when it comes to what is still unanswered, as I have raised almost every day this week, on the 5th of December, I wrote to the government, in fact I wrote to the Cabinet Secretary, I should be accurate, and asked for the details of Mandelson's severance package. These were not complicated questions. It was, what was the detail of the contract and will it be published? Has any NDA been signed at any point to do with it? When did Mandelson receive his final payment, or is he still being paid by the taxpayer? And what were the details of his severance package? We are almost 2 months on, and I have received no response from the Cabinet Secretary, who, as we have discussed today in this chamber, almost ad nauseam, we do not have confidence to be able to carry out this inquiry. It is not a personal attack, it is recognition of the fact that he works for the Prime Minister. It is recognition of the fact that he does not reply to basic and straightforward questions from members of this House. I will happily give way to Honourable Lady.
I thank my honourable friend for giving way. Would she agree with me that, given that those are very basic and very straightforward questions, if she struggled to now to get that answer, and if again she struggles today to get that answer, then we can draw our own conclusions as to what the answer is?
Absolutely.
I think, unfortunately, members will slowly learn this place that where there is a vacuum of silence, our constituents, the great people of this country, see conspiracy, and too often they are sadly right. So I know that the right honourable gentleman on the front bench has committed to get me answers on my letter. Although he's currently having a conversation with someone else, I would just gently encourage him that I would like to see the answer to those questions on the severance today at the dispatch box. Because I raised it on Monday and I have received no response, it is in the motion. Please can we have those answers? I want Madam Deputy Speaker also to briefly reflect on what's happened over the last week. On Sunday, the Labour Party informed the media that they could not strip Mandelson of his membership of the Labour Party. Perhaps the honourable member for Islington, I believe it's North, would like to intervene on me on this point, because I suspect he has something to say about the Labour Party stripping the membership from its members. Then we saw the government on Monday telling this House that they cannot legislate. It would not be appropriate or possible for them to be able to legislate on this. It was too difficult, despite the entire House offering to sit until 4 AM to do so. We then had silence from the government when members of this House asked them to refer the matter to the police. It was quite clear from early doors that this was going to end with the police and hopefully in our courts, as I've argued it should have done back in 2010. Absolutely.
But actually she will recall that during various parliamentary occasions in this chamber on Peter Mandelson, at one stage, despite the Prime Minister knowing that he had a relationship, at one stage she and I asked the Minister a very simple question as to whether they would strip Lord Mandelson of the Labour whip. And that was refused to be answered, and they didn't. Doesn't this just show a constant lack of action from a Prime Minister that doesn't have a grip?
I thank the honourable gentleman. And look, the lesson of being in government, there are many, but one of the ones I'd hope that we have learned is the writing is normally on the wall. It was very clear from early days that this man was going to let down our country, but those of us who criticised him were told, but this is imaginative, this is inspired, they're putting in place a man who can shake things up and make friends with Donald Trump. Then throughout his persistent behaviour, as more and more became clear, the Prime Minister could have taken the decisive action, because as I've said, it has been clear for a very long time that this was not just going to end up with him disgraced. It was not just going to end up with us rightly saying that he should be removed from the other place. It is going to end up with him facing court, I hope. And let me be very clear, malfeasance in public office is what he should be tried for, and that does carry a life sentence. That is how severe the crimes are that he's conducted. And I am ashamed that Gordon Brown raised the flag of warning and seems to have had nothing in response to his concerns.
On that point,
I'd be very happy to give way.
my honourable friend is making a passionate speech, and at the moment, since today's debate has started, more information is coming out, and we might be on the actual tip, and there is so much to come out. And at the moment, the PM has made a significant error of judgment, and people and his backbenchers are still defending it. Does my honourable friend believe that this has the possible chance to cause detriment to the whole of government.
It's very difficult, particularly when your party has such a high number of new MPs, we've been there and experienced it, to feel the mood music, to hear the jungle drums and to understand whether something is a precipice, whether something is a turning point. But I think for many of us who've been reflecting over the last few days, this does have hallmarks of things that we feel we've seen before. We've been here, we've seen this sideshow. And it's very difficult because your integrity is the only thing that you take with you when you leave this place. And that is something too many colleagues across all sides of the House have had to learn over the last few years, because this is a cruel game and you will find yourself thrown out when you do not expect it. I turn now to the Manuscript Amendment that has been laid today. Can I say how much I welcome the fact that this has been moved forward? This is a sign of the government listening, and I give them credit for having done so. However, as I say, all of this could have been prevented if on Monday the Prime Minister had come before this House and made more firm commitments to take action. I will very happily.
I thank my honourable friend for giving way. Does she agree with me, particularly following her point about the writing being on the wall, that the Minister, when he wraps up on behalf of the government, needs to quash any rumours that the Prime Minister is bunkered up in Downing Street planning a reshuffle to stabilise a ship that is sinking?
Alicia Kearns.
I can give but one comment to those new MPs who may think that a reshuffle is a good thing. It only causes more upset and heartache within your own party, and it will not solve the solution. I will very happily give way to the honourable member.
I thank the member for giving way. Does she think that the House should be slightly cautious here and not just roll over and accept the government's manuscript amendment without clear assurances of how far the inquiries are going to go, whether they relate to commercial interests rather than just security interests, and a very clear process of reporting and a timetable on it, so that this isn't just a carpet brushing exercise to get rid of an embarrassing day for the government?
Alicia Kearns.
Can I thank the honourable gentleman? I think it's quite clear that the will of the House is that that would be beyond unacceptable, and that would be a contempt of Parliament if that was what happened. But I can say, and I would like to think this goes to the entire House, that I have complete confidence in the integrity of gentlemen like my right honourable friend, the member for Kenilworth, who sits on that committee. And no one would impugn his integrity or question that he would make sure he got to the bottom of whatever is necessary. But there is no question that this goes so far beyond the vile and inhumane treatment of women, but also to the way in which I'm afraid it appears that Peter Mandelson betrayed not just his own colleagues, but his country into the financial interests of others. I will take one last intervention.
Grateful to my honourable friend for giving way, and further to that last intervention, we need assurance that we're going to have urgency. We've seen victims of child abuse in this country let down by a government which resisted an inquiry and then agreed to it in the big moment, which could be like today, where the government appears to give way, and then months passed with nobody appointed to it. So we need to hear from the Minister the government is going to move with speed to make sure this information comes out.
Alicia Kearns.
Can I thank the right honourable gentleman, because actually he's hit on a point that no one has raised in today's debate, and without it I think we would have had a real missed opportunity. There has been no commitment from the government as yet as to how quickly files will be turned over to the IC, and no commitment to how quickly all the documents mandated within this humble address will be released. That is vital. Now I'm hoping that as part of any release they will contact the Department of Justice and require the release of any additional documents that would be in our national interest, or anything that references Mandelson in any way, or indeed any British national in any way. But I think that would be something I'd ask the Minister to please confirm, because yes, any existing documents could of course be on the IC's desk by Friday. So let's make sure we do move quickly. I want to just conclude by touching once again on the incredibly brave women, without whom none of this would ever have come out. And to Virginia, who obviously is not here today to hear us debate and discuss this important issue. We have to recommit in this place that we will hear women, that we will see women, and that we will stand by women who report abuse. Because all of us have seen how easily women's concerns are dismissed, how well we are spoken over, and how we are ignored, particularly when it comes to men of power. And we have touched on some of the men today who've been named in these documents who are commercially very powerful. There are concerns about who else may come out. No one who has been named in those documents, who knew what happened to those women, should be allowed to continue to live their lives and make profits as if this didn't happen.
Yeah.
And that must be the main commitment. I want transparency, I want those documents out, but actually I want all of us to say, whether it's a woman in our constituency who comes to us, whether it's someone who comes to us from another part of the country in concern, that we will stand by them, because this is a stain on Britain, and we must make sure this never happens again, and that we listen to our women and that we defend them. Thank you, Madam.
Shadow Minister Neil O'Brien.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. This has been an absolutely extraordinary day in British politics. Yep. It is not often that there is an audible intake of breath in this chamber, but we all heard it earlier on. That gasp when the Prime Minister admitted that, yes, he had known that Peter Mandelson had an ongoing relationship with Jeffrey Epstein at the point where he appointed him our ambassador to Washington. It is a truly extraordinary admission. And the argument that the Prime Minister is making now, and it is quite incredible, is that he did know, but he didn't know the depth and extent. And this implies that there is some reasonable extent to which you can be in a long-term relationship with the world's most famous paedophile and still be appointed to our ambassador in Washington. That you can be, to a certain reasonable in depth, involved with the world's most corrupt man and still be appointed His Majesty's ambassador. And now the Prime Minister is asking to be taken on trust. Well, after this whole sordid affair, I'm afraid that's just not good enough anymore. The Prime Minister knew that Mandelson had stayed in Epstein's house while he was in jail for child prostitution. Did that not set some alarm bells ringing in the mind of the Prime Minister? Or is that not deep enough a relationship to have worried the Prime Minister? The member for Skipton earlier on told the House that the British government was warned by one of our closest international allies about their deep concerns before his appointment. Did that not set some alarm bells ringing in the mind of the Prime Minister? No, instead, he appointed a man who had twice had to resign over corruption, and now, unbelievably, his argument is, if only there had been some sign that Peter Mandelson was like this. Unbelievable, Madam Deputy Speaker. And this may just be the beginning. We really need to hear an answer now from the Minister on a specific point which ministers ducked and refused to address earlier on. The whole House will hear if he does not answer. Will the government agree to a full investigations into Mandelson's behaviour while he was our ambassador in Washington? Because on 27th of February last year, Mandelson arranged for the Prime Minister to meet Palantir, a client of Mandelson's company, Global Counsel. That meeting was not recorded in the PM's register of meeting. It only emerged later. Palantir were then awarded a £240 million contract by the government on a direct award rather than a competition. We need the Cabinet Secretary to examine the circumstances of that contract. Will a minister agree, yes or no? And I asked the minister, why wasn't that prime ministerial meeting recorded in the normal way? How many more such lobbyist meetings were there? What other inside information was shared with Mandelson's clients? And will he now agree to a full inquiry into Mandelson's time as our ambassador, yes or no? Can furthermore the Minister reassure the House that the proper process has been followed for all Number 10's other appointments recently? Can he say that very clearly to the House and give us that reassurance? Now, before I come to the Manuscript Amendment, Madam Deputy Speaker, let me say something positive about some of the contributions we've heard today from the Labour backbenchers. The member for the Forest of Dean gave a genuinely superb speech in which he said he would not be able to look victims in the eye if he voted for the government's amendment. He was alone. It was a brave speech. He was not completely alone, because we also heard sensible comments from the Labour backbenchers, including from Oldham West, Ashton-under-Lyme, Widnes, Middlesbrough and Thornby, pointing out that the government's cover-up amendment was simply not going to fly. I think the member for Liverpool Wavertree actually said that she would be ashamed to vote for it, and she was totally right. All those Labour backbenchers have shown their character today. But what a contrast with the behaviour of the Prime Minister, who isn't here. He still hasn't apologised for appointing Mandelson. And a few hours ago, he was telling this House that these documents couldn't be published. He was saying at PMQs that the Leader of the Opposition was outrageous and silly for even asking. And here we are, just a few hours later, and the government has had a total U-turn because they know that they can't get their own people to vote for this shameful proposed cover-up. The Prime Minister has not been decisive. He only sacked Peter Mandelson because we forced him to do. He said again and again that he had full confidence in him. And I think many voters will be thinking, why on earth was the Prime Minister so deeply in hock to this man? The truth is, he was not out on a limb over in Washington. He was a deeply embedded part of the Prime Minister's operation. He was involved in the selection of some of the MPs here today. He was involved in the Prime Minister's reshuffle. He was part of the toxic culture that the Health Secretary, the Labour Health Secretary, has warned about in number 10. And most shamefully of all, we had a former Labour Prime Minister, Gordon Brown, whatever you think of him. He tried to get documents about some of the things that Peter Mandelson had done. He was rebuffed. Funnily enough, the documents couldn't be found. Madam Deputy Speaker, whatever you think of Gordon Brown, when you choose Peter Mandelson over Gordon Brown, you are making the wrong decision. Yeah. So I now come to the Manuscript Amendment, which has hastily been produced by the government. This is, for the people watching at home, this is an amendment to an amendment. It's a U-turn on top of a U-turn. So we now need, given the chaos from this government, 3 clear assurances, and we'll all be listening from the Minister at the dispatch box. First, that everything that people in number 10 do not want to publish will be sent to the ISC in unredacted form. Second, that it will be the ISC, not number 10, which determines their handling. And this comes to the question, a very good question put by the member for Hayes and Harlington, that if the ISC says that documents deemed sensitive by number 10 can be released, that the ISC will be able to release them without any veto from number 10. And finally, we need... I'm happy to give way to an honourable friend.
It's really important we hear from the government on clarity on this, because there could be individual documents versus a report. Now, the independent committee can produce a report, but we need to know those individual documents that could be challenged could be put out if the committee feel it's correct. Does he agree?
Neil O'Brien.
I absolutely agree with my honourable friend, and I want to hear from the Minister. Will he agree that the IC should be able to give the gist of documents, even if they are not fully released? But third, can we have a reassurance on this hastily proposed manuscript amendment that we will not be waiting for months, that this will not turn out like the grooming gangs where nothing happens in the end, that we will not be waiting for ages, and there will be a clear and short time frame on getting these documents published and to the ISC? Happy to give way.
Senator Hurst. I'm very grateful, Mr. Speaker, for the honourable gentleman giving way. There's a fourth point, which is that there's going to be likely to be a sizable volume of documents for the IC to review. Will the Minister reassure this House that the IC will be given the resources in order to do their job?
It's an excellent and good learned point from my right honourable friend. He's completely correct. Mr. Speaker, I actually today feel quite a lot of sympathy for Labour backbenchers. They have once again been put in a totally impossible position by the Prime Minister and his advisor, Morgan McSweeney. The government wanted the same people who had appointed Mandelson in the first place to be able to control the release of information about the way that appointment was made, the extraordinary way it was made. And I actually today feel for those Labour backbenchers, because these people in Downing Street, they're the same people who told all of them that they had to vote to cut the winter fuel payment because there would be a run on the pound if they didn't vote for it. It's the same people in number 10 who told them that they wouldn't change their position on the family farm tax, and then after people had killed themselves, they changed their position on it. It's the same people in number 10 who got them to vote against an inquiry into grooming gangs. And that is telling, Mr. Speaker, because that was another occasion on which this weak Prime Minister put his own political interest ahead of respecting victims. Mr. Speaker, today we learned a little bit more about the character of our Prime Minister, and as a result, as I listen to them today, I think now even some Labour MPs are asking themselves the same question as the public out there. Doesn't this country deserve better?
Yeah! Minister. Mr. Speaker, I beg to move the Manuscript Amendment standing in the name of my right honourable friend, the Prime Minister. Can I start by thanking everyone who contributed? The tone was overwhelmingly constructive, serious and aimed at getting to the truth. In particular, I just want to thank a few members. The member from North Dorset, who I thought got the tone exactly right, asked a number of serious questions which I will come to, and reminded us the importance of the matter in hand. I also want to thank my honourable member for Forest of Dean, who, while he disagrees with me, did so agreeably and put his case very well and with passion. I also want to thank the honourable member for Skipton, or right honourable member for Skipton and Ripon, who reminded us of the origins of the humble address. And when I was a political advisor on the Brexit team in opposition, these looked a bit more clever than they do today. So I thank him for that and the spirit he did it. But in particular, I want to thank and highlight the speech by my honourable friend for Bolsover, who I thought made an incredibly powerful and commanding speech and rightly put the voice of victims in this House, and she did so brilliantly. So thank you for that. Mr. Speaker, it's clear from all sides of the House today that they share the public's anger at Mandelson's treachery, his lies and his deceit. As the Prime Minister said earlier, Mandelson betrayed this country. He betrayed Parliament, he betrayed my party, and he betrayed our government. He lied. I'll just make a little progress and I will, if that's okay. He lied to the Prime Minister. He lied during the vetting process, which I will return to because a number of members raised it. Frankly, Mr. Speaker, I suspect he's still lying now. And that's why, since new information came to light, the Prime Minister, over the weekend, the Prime Minister has acted in a number of ways. Firstly, on Monday, I will. Just let me complete this and I will. On Monday, the Prime Minister instructed the Cabinet Secretary to investigate all papers released by the US Department of Justice. The Chief Secretary to the Prime Minister also set out to this House in a statement. On Tuesday, the Cabinet Secretary decided to refer certain material to the police with the Prime Minister's support, and subsequently the police have launched a full investigation with which we will cooperate fully and must go everywhere the evidence takes it. I will give way, if you take up first the honourable gentleman there, and then I'll give way.
I think it's pretty underhand of the Minister to make himself the champion of public anger about the person Mandelson was. Because I can tell you what the House is angry about on both sides. It's not just with Mandelson, it's with the Prime Minister for appointing him in the first place.
Minister.
As the Prime Minister has said many times, if he'd have known what he knows now, he wouldn't have had him within 1 million miles of government, and that is absolutely right. I will give one over to my honourable friend.
Sir Julian Lewis.
I'm very grateful to the Minister for giving way. I'll try and make the same point, but in a less emotional way. Now, the Prime Minister was asked today directly, could he tell us, did the official security vetting that he received mention Mandelson's ongoing relationship with the paedophile Jeffrey Epstein? And he replied, yes, it did. Now, the point is that when the Minister says he lied to the Prime Minister, but the Prime Minister knew that the relationship was ongoing. So even if he lied about some other aspects of the relationship, cannot the Minister see that the fact there was any ongoing relationship at all with a man who'd been imprisoned for paedophilia and prostitution, can he not see that that was an impossible position to defend, and no subsequent lies or revelations alter the fact that the Prime Minister appointed him when he knew that he was in that ongoing relationship?
Can I thank him for that? As the Prime Minister said, he was lied to repeatedly by Mandelson. And the scope of the due diligence, which I will come to the vetting process in a minute, but the scope of the due diligence is within the scope of this humble address. It will be released. The House will be able to see for itself this process. I'll just make a little progress if that's okay, and then I will come back to it. Alongside further steps the Prime Minister has made in the last week, he has recommended to the King that Mandelson be removed from the Privy Council. He has instructed legislation, this is the point the honourable member for North Dorset raised, legislation to be drawn up to strip him of his title, and for wider reform of the House of Lords process. In answer to the question raised earlier, that legislation is imminent. It will be in government time, and it will be brought to this House as soon as possible. Frankly, I wish it was already here now, but it will come very, very soon, and it will be in government time. I will give way to the honourable gentleman and then there. That's okay.
Grateful to the Minister for giving way. But of course, before the appointment of Peter Mandelson as our ambassador, he was appointed as strategic advisor, consultant, advocate and planner for the 2024 Labour Party general election campaign. And could I suggest that he was appointed, and members opposite know this to be true, because he was treacherous, because he was deceitful, and because he was a liar, a master manipulator in political dark arts. That's why the Prime Minister appointed him. And there's no defence, is there?
Minister.
Just to be clear, he was not appointed to any role in the 2024. I remember that campaign very, very well. And honourable members, to clear up two other points that were raised in this debate. As honourable members made very, very clear earlier, he had no role in candidate selection at all. That is done by the NEC and through the rule book. He had absolutely no role in it. He had absolutely, if I just finished, he had absolutely no role or say in any reshuffle either. And for honourable members just to keep repeating it, it is absolutely, fundamentally untrue.
Who are you giving way to? I've got Forster. Which one? There's a few. There we are. Come on, hurry across.
Thank the Minister for giving way. Just say the Minister was appointing his own new member of staff, and he knew that member of staff had twice lost a job in the past because of misdemeanours. If he then also knew that member of staff had relationships continuing with a convicted paedophile, would the Minister give him a job?
Yes or no?
Minister.
She tempts me into hypotheticals I'm not going to get to, if that's all right. But let me answer some other. I'm going to make some progress, if that's all right, because there are a number of questions raised, and I want to. I will. I want to make some progress, please, because a number of people raised the question of vetting, which I want to come to, and the chair of the Foreign Affairs Committee outlined this process a little earlier, and I just want to clarify that. But she was absolutely right in what she said. Before Mandelson's appointment, there were two distinct and separate processes. Firstly, within the Cabinet Office, where due diligence was followed in exactly the usual fashion for this type of appointment, and a second process, which is national security vetting, undertaken by UKSV, the UK security. I'll just complete this point, by UK security vetting. I want to be very clear with the House. None of that was skipped. Nothing was removed from the usual process. And we have, as the Paymaster General set out earlier, strengthened the vetting process further. I will give way to the Honourable Lady, and then I will give way to the Honourable Gentleman behind.
Thank you. I thank the Honourable Gentleman for giving way. I wonder if I could ask him, the Prime Minister said clearly today that he knew when he appointed Peter Mandelson to the job as His Majesty's Ambassador, that he knew that he had an ongoing relationship with paedophile Epstein. So can the Minister tell us what sort of relationship he thinks would be acceptable in appointing such a person?
Minister.
As the Prime Minister made clear, he was lied to repeatedly by Peter Mandelson on this, and information on that was in the vetting report, which will be published to the House. I will give way to the Honourable Gentleman.
Sir Ali Shelby.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I thank the Minister for giving way. But the question, Mr. Speaker, to the Minister is this. The Prime Minister stood at the dispatch box and said he knew. When the Minister says that documents will be released and the vetting will be released, that's all irrelevant, Mr. Speaker, because we're not interested in what he said, because the Prime Minister said that he knew. So the question is this. Why did the Prime Minister feel that that was appropriate to appoint one of the most senior ambassadors in the world? That's got nothing to do with vetting. This gets to the heart of the Prime Minister's judgment.
Minister Ward.
As I say, the Prime Minister, look, before Mandelson was appointed, there were reports obviously linking him with Epstein. This was looked into as part of the vetting process. Mandelson lied to the Prime Minister, he hid information. When new information came out, he removed it from it. This information will come out, will be approached and will come further. I'm going to make some progress and actually come to the motion, if that's okay. I will give way to my own relief. It's the first one from behind me.
The Minister...
Just a minute. In fairness to the Minister, he's given way time and time on this side, and quite rightly, he's giving way to the left. So don't feel that you've been outdone to, please.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Will the Minister agree with me that the reason we are here today is because of the brave women that have spoken out and led us here? That we have a responsibility, a shared responsibility as a House, to make sure that no stone is unturned. And as a government, we will absolutely make sure that the victims at the heart of the paedophile Epstein's crimes get the justice they deserve. We carry on calling out this behaviour wherever we see it, and we make sure that now we are in government, we will do everything we can to halve violence against women and girls. It comes too little too late, but it's needed now more than ever.
I absolutely agree. I couldn't have put it, well, I couldn't have it anywhere near as well as that. And the Honourable Lady made, as I say, an incredibly powerful speech earlier. She quoted Virginia Giuffre in her speech at length. I thought that was an extraordinarily powerful way to make the point, and she made it better than anyone because it's the victims we should have in mind. I will give way. I will give way one more time, and then I will come to the motion, if that's all right.
Dear Kearns. I appreciate the Minister for giving way. One of my concerns has been that when Mandelson was our ambassador in DC, he was responsible for a very large embassy. Now, there may have been members of the Foreign Office staff there who have survived rape or sexual assault, or they may well have been sexual assaults during his tenure of ambassador. Can I confirm that Foreign Office ministers have reviewed all HR decisions he made while he was there as ambassador to make sure that any women who had any concerns about treatment or they were spoken to or things they reported received the support that they deserved?
Can I thank her for that point? Look, anyone who obviously would make any allegation or any report of that would obviously be treated seriously. I will take it up with Foreign Office ministers, if that's okay, and come back to her, because she does raise an incredibly serious point. I will give way one more time to the former Attorney General, if that's okay, and then I will...
I'm extremely grateful to the Minister for giving way, and I know he wants to move on to the motion, but just before he does, the point was raised by my honourable friend with the Shadow Minister, but I'd be grateful for some reassurance from him. He's moved the Manuscript Amendment. If the House today passes this motion with the Manuscript Amendment attached, then a volume of material will reach the Intelligence and Security Committee. He knows that our administrative resources are limited, and we do not know what volume of material may be coming our way. The House will expect us to do a thorough job. We will seek to do one. But can I ask him to reassure me and the House that the committee will have the additional administrative resources it needs, if it needs them, in order to consider that material properly?
Minister. Can I thank him for that and for the speech he made earlier and the point he's making this? Absolutely, yes. I completely recognise the point he's making. There is a lot of documents covered by the motion here. That's not a complaint, it's an observation, and that the ISC's role, they have the authority and respect of this House. They need the resources to go with it. We will ensure that that happens in the usual way. I'm going to go to the motion, if that's okay. I'm going one more time, and then the motion.
Smith, I thank the Minister for giving way. Could he confirm on the floor of the House that the Government will also include details of how the Government managed conflicts of interest between Peter Mandelson's shareholding in Global Council and his activities as ambassador? And specifically, could he look at the background and come back to the House on 2 contracts, one to Adderall Technologies and one to Palantir, which were direct award contracts, of which at least one of those clients was a client of Global Council?
Can I thank him for that? And as I mentioned at the beginning, the way he went about his speech as well. Look, the humble address will cover that will be within scope of the humble address that we'll have it. And if there are specific further points regarding direct procurements that the Cabinet Office needs to look into, I will write to him and come back to him because that's a fair point. Well, from the I will intercept the opposition spokesman.
I'm very grateful to the Minister for giving way, and he's being very generous with his time. The humble address is obviously about Lord Mandelson's appointment. However, the point raised by my right honourable friend was about 2 contracts, at least one of which was went to, by direct award, a business that was a client of Global Council. The Prime Minister met that company whilst in Washington. It did not appear on his register of interest. Will the Minister assure the House that the Cabinet Secretary will look into the process that led up to that direct award?
Minister.
As I said, we will deal with what's in the first. Everything in the humble address we'll deal with. On that point, I will ask the Cabinet. I will write back to him. I will write back to the Honourable Gentleman as well, and I will follow up with the Cabinet Secretary on that point, if that's okay. I'm going to get to the motion, then I promise I will give way, because you have been trying. I'm going to get to the motion. I'm going to get to the motion. Now, as I said, the Government expects the spirit, purpose and intent of the opposition motion. And we want to provide transparency and drain the swamp of Mandelson's lies. The amendment we have, the Manuscript Amendment we've put forward, has two important points in it. One on national security and one on foreign relations. I want to cover those quickly and then I will take interventions. On national security, as the Prime Minister has said from this dispatch box and has said more times to me over the years I've known him than I can remember, is his #1 priority, and he will never compromise on that. That is why we wanted it in the motion, and that's why we wanted it in front of the House. There is a precedent for this within the humble address, as we mentioned. Well, I think one of my right-honourable friends mentioned earlier in the humble address we did regarding Lebedev, which included the words, and I quote, in a form which may contain redactions, but such redactions shall be solely for the purposes of national security. So the intention is to abide with that spirit, and the intention is to make a very clear point on national security. But I will come to how this is going to be done by the ISC and the Cabinet Secretary in a second. On international relations, as the Prime Minister said, these documents, which are significant in number, could well touch on sensitive issues of intelligence, trade, or relations with other countries. For example, we would not inadvertently want to release information about what our red lines are in trade agreements, about the peace negotiations and position on things like Ukraine, Middle East or Sudan, or on sensitive assessments made on our allies and with diplomatic conversations on our life depends. The point of the amendment is that we are trying to address that and to make that clear within the House, and we're trying to balance transparency with national security. And that is what the Manuscript is doing. I will give way to the honourable gentleman, the right honourable gentleman behind, and then I'll give way.
Ben, I thank the Minister for giving way, and no disrespect to the Intelligence and Security Committee, but he will have heard the points of order from the member for Hayes and Harlington and myself earlier. I think we need to know that there is a timetable for this inquiry. We need to know that it is not going to rule out specifically commercial interests such as Palantir and not investigate them. And we need to know that it's also going to investigate the whole web of influence that Peter Mandelson had over so much in government, which has brought about this dreadful position where we end up appointing somebody who's a friend of a paedophile as the ambassador to Washington. Because there are many people looking at this debate today who will not be happy that Parliament merely shoves it off to a committee of its own when they think there should be a wider public interest inquiry into the whole affair.
Yeah. Minister. Thank you for that. Look, the police investigation will go wherever it needs to. It will cover any criminality or allegations thereof. That is the right way to do it. And nothing, I say, will be hidden in that fashion. With permission, Mr. Speaker, I am going to make some progress here because time is pushing. I will give way in a second. Time is pushing now. So let me come to the Manuscript Amendment. So we will agree with the ISC how they're going to work with us and scrutinise it, and I welcome the commitment made earlier on. As the Paymaster General set out earlier, the process for deciding what falls in scope will be led by the Cabinet Secretary, supported by Cabinet Office lawyers, working with the ISC. The Cabinet Secretary will take independent advice on the decision he's taking, and it will take two forms. First, through independent cases. Secondly, through scrutiny of the approach he's taking, working directly hand in hand with the ISC. Now, the Cabinet Secretary will write to the ISC, setting out that process. He will meet with them regularly to ensure they are content with it, and in line with the Manuscript Amendment, papers determined to be prejudicial to national security or international relations will be referred, let me finish please, will be referred to the ISC. The ISC are independent, they are rigorous, they are highly respected. They will then decide what to do with the material that is sent to them. I will give way. I'm going to give way to the honourable lady.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I thank my honourable friend for giving way. Just for further clarity, the concern I think people have is that there will be a decision made by the government in the form of the Cabinet Secretary about what is referred to the ISC. What we are keen to know is that the bulk of the documents will be in the hands of the ISC.